Okay, here we are. It's the holiday season, and many of you are very concerned about what kind of gifts to give your family and friends. But what about the ultimate gift? What you're leaving behind. Now, I know we don't really want to talk about it, but we kind of need to address it. We've got the estate planning doctor joining us this morning. Clint Smith is here to talk about that subject, as well as some updates that are taking place in 2014. And you know, here we are, we're running around crazy, getting presents for everybody. And this is such a touchy subject because hopefully come Christmas morning, we're all still going to be here, including ourselves. We don't think that anything's going to happen, but we need to address this in case something does.
Yeah, you know, we run around, we spend all kinds of time. We talked before about planning a vacation. We plan what the perfect gift is for somebody that we're going to, you know, spend a few bucks on or whatever. What I think the ultimate gift is to give somebody peace of mind, to take care of business so that things aren't a mess when something happens, and things happen. People pass away, sudden accidents, all kinds of things happen, illnesses, and I know you've had some family issues with those kinds of things.
No, well, and the other thing too is when we're talking about the situations that you don't want to address, but it is so important to have a plan, and especially with who's doing what. You know, for example, like my husband was the executor over his aunt and uncle, and I found it very interesting how the family came out of the woodwork when these two people passed away.
Yeah, they probably figured there was some money at stake and what's in it for me kind of a deal, and yeah, it changes the landscape, and that's why it's so important to sit down while you're calm and thinking clearly and say, this is how I'd like things to go. I don't want my family members to be fighting with each other and being greedy and nosy and all that good stuff. It happens anyway, right? You've seen that. But if you take a few steps, simple steps, you can, set it up so that people don't have to have those problems.
Well, let's talk about the steps to establish a plan and questions that people may not even consider, like, well, where does my dog go? Right?
Yeah, well.
What about, okay, my kids, well, I would assume they'd go to my sister, but I don't have it written down anywhere.
I talked to somebody yesterday that they don't have anything in place. They've got 4 little kids. And they said, what happens to my kids? Do they go to foster care or what? And I said, well, not necessarily, because you have family around, but your family's going to probably fight over them. They're not going to know where to live. They're not going to know who gets the life insurance because nobody planned for that. They have husband and wife as the beneficiary. If they both go in an accident, where are those kids going to go? It's a big mess. And so man, that was really a wake-up call. I got to say, Lisa, though, I try to not scare people into doing it. I mean, hope floats, right? You want to try to make this a positive thing, and really what it does offer is peace of mind. When you can say to your family, I got my stuff in order, and
it's written down, and it's
all
in a
written
safe
down, and
place.
here it is, and that's probably the least exciting Christmas gift you can think of, but the most meaningful and ultimately a powerful one.
Okay, so let's say somebody has sat down, they've allocated who gets what, and it's in a safe place. Now, does this need to be notarized? Does this need to be signed off by an attorney, by an estate planner, to make sure that their wishes are honored?
Yeah, there are definitely rules in place. Certain documents need notaries, certain documents need witnesses.
Versus I'm out at a bar and I decided on a napkin that I was going to write down that, my neighbor's getting the dog.
Interestingly enough.
Which I'm sure happens.
If you sign it, that actually works. That's called a holographic will.
Really?
And if it's in your own handwriting and you sign it and date it, that can fly just like anything else. It may not take care of everything you want it to take care of. Okay, maybe your dog is well taken care of, but what about all the other stuff that goes on, like business interests and
your stocks and everything else.
Yeah, stocks.
Now, you've written this book, Estate Planning: A Plain English Guide to Wills and Trusts. Tell everybody how this can help them when they're sitting down to plan what's going on with their estate.
I think this is really a daunting subject for lots of people. They think of estate plans and they think of the Hamptons and they think of this major stuff. Well, it can be really a small deal. Whatever people have in their own possession, their own house and their 401s and their just basic stuff can add up pretty fast. And so they need to have a plan. And I wrote this book in order to be able to convey to people in plain English what it takes to do that and why it's so important to get an estate plan set up.
And it's not difficult.
It's not hard at all.
Right.
We have a little 5-page intake form, and people fill that out, and then we sit down, we spend maybe an hour together, sometimes more, and we write up all the documents, and then I sit down and explain it. It's really not as hard as people think.
Updates for 2014. What is different this next year? What do we need to know? and I saw something about gifting.
Yeah,
We
well,
need to address.
Actually, it's already changed. It's already happened. There's nothing new happening in 2014. Last year, we had the fiscal cliff, and our whole world, in the estate planning world, was on edge because nobody knew what the exemption was going to be, how much you could leave to the next generation tax-free. That's all been settled now. It's permanent, which means as long as this Congress is in session until the next one decides to change it. But we have a $5.25 million exemption. You can pass each person to the next generation tax-free. That's estate tax and gift tax. They're unified. So that's really simple. So most people don't have tax implications anymore. So 99% of the people don't worry about estate or gift tax.
Here you're excited that you received this nice inheritance from your mother, father, or grandparent, and I know one of the first questions is, well, am I going to get taxed on this?
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
It's not.
Okay, what else do they need to know?
Well, there's a thing called an A-B split. There used to be 10 years ago, it was a big thing. You'd set up a trust so it would turn into two trusts when one spouse passed away. And that was because you needed to take advantage, each of you, of that exemption I was talking about, the $5.25 million. Well, now there's a thing called portability. So they both apply to you. Even if one spouse passes away, the other spouse gets both exemptions. So they pass $10.5 million tax-free. So it's really simple as far as the tax part goes.
Important information to give the ultimate gift this holiday season, and you can always go to estateplanningdoctor.com. And that was Clint Smith. We'll be right back after this.